director of The 40-Year-Old Virgin.
I'm pregnant.
Congratulations.
You're the father.
Rolling Stone calls Knocked Up hilarious in ways you have to see to believe.
I'm going to be there to rear your child. You hear that, Ben? Don't let him near the kid. He wants to rear your child.
Knocked Up is the comedy of the summer and maybe the year.
He has man boobs. Where does that end?
It's uproarious.
It's going to be cold, and you're next.
Knocked Up, rated R, in theaters June 1st.
So as you see there, the story of Knocked Up is the repercussions of a drunken one-night stand between a slacker played by Seth Rogen and a recently promoted media personality played by Katherine Heigl that results in an unintended pregnancy. And this was kind of the movie that turned everybody around to who, Judd Apatow was as a director. He had hits behind him with mostly mainstream slapstick comedies, but this is a film that borders more on a little more comedic, but there's a little bit more of a dramatic side too, because you have the repercussions of what happens with this couple that eventually has to decide, what's the future for them. How do they go about this, and you see that these two do have a likable chemistry to one another, and you buy the relationship as a whole. I mean, I really like this movie a lot. I like the movie because Rogen and Heigl, I think, work off each other very well. I think there's an amazing supporting cast behind this movie. You see in the trailer there, you see Jay Baruchel, Leslie Mann, Paul Rudd, Jonah Hill, Jason Segel, Martin Starr, Harold Ramis has a little role in here, Joanna Kearns from Growing Pains. Who else is in here? I remember Kristen Wiig is in here too. There's a lot of talent in this film all across the board, and they're just... Everyone's role in here makes sense, and it's a very funny film. It's not afraid to take itself too seriously either. Like, it's not afraid to be serious enough, but never to the point where it's too overdramatic at times. And it really isn't. It really does feel very realistic. Feels very genuine overall. It's a really good movie. It's one that I really like a lot. I like going back to it a lot of times. I think it's funny that Katherine Heigl finds this movie sexist, because it would soon be after this that she would make these really terrible comedies with characters that are like when you see these movies like The Ugly Truth and One for the Money and other movies like that, just like you clearly have no idea what the hell you're talking about, because she was going out after this movie came out saying that this movie was sexist, and then she goes on to star in something as bad as The Ugly Truth, which we'll eventually get to. I mean, it just really just makes no sense whatsoever. And there's not really... there's not really a lot of that in this movie in general. Everything about this feels genuine for the most part. I mean, it's like I said, it's a really good movie, but there's a lot of people that take some of the stuff in this movie they try to add something that's not really there. I really didn't see it all the times I've watched it. And I watched just recently. I didn't see anything that's sexist in here about Katherine Heigl's performance in here. I thought she played it well. I thought Rogen and Heigl had some nice chemistry together. I think the movie's really good. I think it's a very good film. Definitely one of Judd Apatow's best films overall. It just shows what he is, how good of a director he really is. Because he doesn't usually make a ton of bad movies, at least not until his latter movies. But now, this is really good. I really like this one a lot. It's definitely one I recommend, and I think most of you have seen it out there already. But if you haven't, definitely give it a watch. Knocked Up. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last one we have here, and that is Kevin Costner as Mr. Brooks.
Everyone has two sides. On June 1st, they collide. Hello. See the movie critics are calling the most intelligent crime thriller in years. I have never felt such a rush. Completely original and gripping.
Colton, please tell me who you are.
It's wickedly entertaining.
We are going to have so much fun.
Mr. Brooks, radar. In theaters everywhere, June.
Yeah, this is one of those movies I remember seeing back in the day, and I had no idea how to take it because it had one of those bizarre twist endings that I'll get to in just a little bit here. But in the film, you follow the title character, a celebrated Portland businessman and serial killer played by Costner, who is forced to take on a protege played by Dane Cook after being blackmailed and has to contend with his bloodthirsty alter ego. I kept calling him a guardian angel. I mean, to him, he kind of sees himself as a guardian angel, played by the late William Hurt, who convinces him to indulge his habit. His life grows even more complicated when a German police officer, played by Demi Moore, reopens the investigation into his murders. And throughout the course of the movie, you're kind of intrigued of where it's going to go. I think everybody plays their parts in this role very well. I think Kevin Costner does a great job of playing this dual role in here. You know, him and William Hurt. I think William Hurt plays the alter ego very well here, channeling his evil side a lot. It's interesting to see Dane Cook taking on a more dramatic role here, and I think he works very well here. It's a very rare turn from his more mainstream comedies in general, and it shows that he does have potential as an actor as a whole if you give him a more serious role here. And I thought he did pretty well in here. I thought he actually was one of the stronger things about the movie. Demi Moore has a good little supporting role here. You also have Mark Helgenberger and Daniel Panabaker playing his daughter, playing Brooks' daughter. But the movie really, it's baffling to me. Like, it doesn't really have a sincere ebb and flow of where exactly it wants to go. And I think the twist ending, perfectly sums that up. If you haven't seen the movie and you want to know what it is, you can kind of turn away. But the movie makes it seem like at the end that his daughter's going to turn into be like him and turn him into a serial killer, and like he has a nightmare about that, and then he wakes up and then he's reciting this prayer. And I think they're setting it up for a potential sequel, maybe, but at the same time, though, it just nothing about what happens beforehand really amounts to that moment in particular. It feels like a moment that is being thrown in there so they can set up a potential sequel that never is happening, because I don't think anybody really wanted to see a sequel to this. The film didn't really make that much money in general to really cement a sequel in general, but it still did decent enough business. But again, it's not enough there to really set the tone up for potentially another film in the series. I just felt like they kind of did that to just sequel bait and for something that's never going to happen, and it just feels kind of pointless in the long run. I don't know if there's like an alternate ending that happens here or something like that. I thought the DVD had one, but I never watched this after I watched it on DVD. After I watched it on the big screen. I just never really had that much of an interest in rewatching the film again per se. I mean, I guess the film as a whole isn't terrible, but it's definitely a film that I think really isn't as good as I think I remember. And I remember coming out of it going like, that wasn't bad, but I've never really had any true intentions of watching it ever again. And I honestly don't know if it's held up over nearly 20 years later. I mean, maybe it has. I'm not too sure, but anyway, that's my thoughts on Mr. Brooks. Overall mixed review, but I don't know. I thought it was okay back then. I'd have to check back with it again just to see if it actually does hold up or not. Maybe it's actually gotten better over time, and maybe I'm just not seeing it.
This town might have changed, but not me. I know people highly invested in my survival, and they are people who really know how to hurt in ways you can't even imagine.
Well, I know all the guys that you'd hire to come after me. They like me better than you. I know how that makes me feel. I know what that makes me want to do.
I was really hoping to avoid that this time. Let's go, boys. Think he's gonna fall for this?
You did. You ready?
I was born ready.
Now, see, unlike the last Ocean's movie, this is a movie that actually has somewhat of an idea of what it's trying to be in the trailer. The last trailer I showed you for Ocean's 12 really felt like that nobody even knew what the hell they were doing there. I mean, the trailer literally ended with George Clooney going, "What are we stealing? Like, what are we doing here?" This time, there actually is a purpose for them to get together. Last time we saw Danny Ocean's crew, they were paying back ruthless casino mogul Terry Benedict after stealing millions from him. However, it's been a while since they've been back together, which is all about the change. When one of their own, Ruben Tishkoff, builds a hotel with another casino owner, Willie Bank, played by Al Pacino, the last thing he wanted was to get cut out of the deal personally by the loathsome Bank. Bank's attitude even goes as far as finding the amusement in Tishkop's misfortune when the double-crossing lands Ruben in the hospital because of a heart attack. However, Danny and his crew won't stand for Bank and what he's done to a friend. Uniting with their old enemy Benedict, who himself has a vendetta against Bank, the crew is out to pull off a major plan, one that will unfold on the night Bank's new hotspot opens up. They're not in this for the money, but for the revenge. And already, right off the bat, this is the sequel that Ocean's 12 should have been. This is not a movie where everybody has no idea what the hell they're doing there. They're just there to make a quick buck. This is a film that takes the series back to form. Is it as good as Ocean's 11? No. But it does return the series back to form, like in terms of, having a storyline that feels like there's a reason why these people are getting back together again. It's not like a film where they're just making it because they're just making a sequel and we'll just make shit up as we go along. No, this feels like a film that goes back to the format that worked before. And everything about it, I think, really does work overall. I think it is a very entertaining film. Bringing in Al Pacino and Ellen Barkin into the mix here. They both have a lot of really good, interesting roles in this movie in particular. I really like what Ellen Barkin does in this film. She has more of a bigger role than I probably would have thought early on. And there's a whole subplot where Matt Damon kind of has to woo her. And it leads to a lot of really funny stuff. Al Pacino overall is very good in the film. You also got many of the same people back from the last film. Julia Roberts and Catherine Zeta-Jones aren't back for this one here, which is very interesting, but really, you don't miss them overall in the film when you really think about it. But overall, the film is just much better at, expanding the storyline from the last film. It isn't just a film that is quite simply just another movie that we're making and we're just going to write up as we go along. Because that was the biggest problem with Ocean's 12. Everything about that movie felt like they were just making it up as they go along. Hey, let's bring in Bruce Willis in here. Let's have the storyline that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Why are we all gathering here? Because we're getting a big payday from it. This film really did feel like they were trying to go back to what made the original Ocean's 11 so cool and so slick to watch. And it really does go back to what makes this series so great overall. They have a lot of great new additions to the cast. Everybody that comes back is very good. Everybody does fit the roles very well here. It is just as slick and as entertaining as the original film is. Not quite as good as the original film, but it takes the series back to form and what this series was, why the series was working to begin with. And I mean, this really is a nice return to form to the series. Was it unnecessary? Yeah, absolutely, but it works because it's just overall much more entertaining. It has more of a purpose to it than the last film did. And there is more of an engaging storyline here. There is more to it than there was in the last film. It isn't just, let's just redo the same thing and we'll make it up as we go along. When they made this, there was actually a purpose to it. There was a reason why everybody came back for this one. And they weren't just making it up as they go along. Like I've been saying the last couple times already. But Ocean's 13 is a really good movie. It's a really entertaining film. Not quite as good as Ocean's 11, but it's definitely back on track to what these films should be about. And, this is the last time all these guys would get together. There would be another Ocean's movie with Sandra Bullock and Cate Blanchett in a kind of a female version of Ocean's 11 with Ocean's 8, which was, I thought, pretty good. I thought it was actually really enjoyable. But, yeah, in terms of the original trilogy, I'm glad they finished it on a higher note than the last film did. Definitely a much better finish than the previous film was. Really good film, Ocean's 13. And speaking of really good films that came out this weekend, let's take a look at Sony Pictures' second animated feature, and that is Surf's Up.
That is funny.
Get ready
What is this stuff?
That's poop.
for a major ocean picture.
Moment of silence for them. And we keep it moving.
Surf's Up.
You're going to want to watch it over and over.
Can I get in line now to see it? Rated PG.
So this was Sony Pictures Animation's second big feature that they had made after Open Season was the big hit in the fall. This one was not as successful financially, but I thought it was actually a whole lot better than Open Season was. This film is actually a lot better than I think a lot of people gave it credit for. Because, like I said, I've said before, this was around that time when, they were making Penguin movies because of the success of, March of the Penguins and Happy Feet and of course the Madagascar Penguins. I mean, there was a lot of Penguin movies that came out around this time period, and most of them were pretty good. This one in particular, I think, really is very much one of the more underrated movies that they've done. And this film follows a teenage rock hopper penguin named Cody Maverick, played by Shia LaBeouf, from his hometown of Shiverpool, Antarctica, where all the other penguins think he's nothing but a surfing fool, to the Big Z Memorial Surf-Off at Pengu Island. Young Cody is determined to win the most important competition in the world of penguin surfing in honor of Big Z, a deceased surfer legend whom he'd idolized since childhood. But the waves in Pengu are different than in Shiverpool, and the competition is steep. The current champ, egotistical Tank Evans, played by Diedrich Bader, isn't just about to let this little penguin knock him from first place without a fight. When Cody wipes out and encounters Geek, played by Jeff Bridges, a recluse, aging former surfer living in the jungle, he learns something important lessons about life and surfing, and even teaches Geek a thing or two. And like I said before, this is such a really good movie, and it's an extremely underrated film that Sony Pictures Animation did. You know, Shia LaBeouf, I thought, was very good in the movie. This was a very big year for him, of course, with Disturbia coming out a couple weeks before this. And, you know, he really makes this penguin very likable. He's very charismatic, and it does show what the range he has as an actor in here. You've also got a great voice cast. It also includes Zooey Deschanel and James Woods. John Heder plays this chicken friend of Cody's, who is very fun in the film as well. And Jeff Bridges as a Geek in here, which you do find out who eventually he is. And if you can put the pieces together there, you probably can figure out who he really is. But he plays this role like the dude from The Big Lebowski. I mean, he's literally the dude from The Big Lebowski, and it's just so hilarious to hear that voice coming out of this a bloated penguin character that he literally looks like the dude if he was a penguin, and it's just so perfectly put together here. It's a brilliant casting choice, and you got a lot of good humor in here, a good little story about, how far do you want to go with your dreams, but you have to realize that there's more to that than just following your dreams and all that. Like I said, a great star-studded voice cast, a really good story, a great animation, really good humor all across the board. Such a great movie that does not get the proper attention it deserves. It definitely deserves to be watched. Watch this movie, Surf's Up. It's definitely one of Sony's animation's best movies that was very underrated. I would also say avoid the WWE sequel they made almost 10 years later, because when I think of this movie, Surf's Up, the first thing I think of, WWE. Because why not? Why not have them in there? I have never seen it, nor do I plan on seeing it, because, that's just not my thing. Although I did watch the Jetsons WWE movie that came out the exact same year, but we'll save that for another time. But in the meantime, Surf's Up, great movie, one that definitely needs to be checked out. So with that said, let us go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is Eli Roth's sequel to Hostel, Hostel Part 2.
Jedes Jahr werden in Amerika 10.000 Menschen mit einer Schusswaffe getötet. Darüber hinaus werden über 2.000 Menschen erstochen. Amerikaner haben einfach keine Fantasie. Hostel Teil 2.
So yeah, this was kind of a film that had a couple things that already went against it when it was trying to come out around this time, but we'll delve into that in just a second. But Hostel Part 2, it follows 3 American female art students in Rome who are directed to a Slovak village that are eventually kidnapped and taken to a facility in which rich clients play to torture and kill other people. Now, there were a lot of problems with this movie getting out of theaters. One of them was that the fact that, several countries banned the movie from getting released to theaters. You're opening up in the middle of June, which is not a very good time of the year to open up a horror movie. The reason why the first movie was such a success was because it opened up in the dumping month of January. I mean, it opened up in a month where nobody really puts anything out there, and that film took off because there was nobody else putting anything out there, and that's why that was so successful. But Eli Roth thinks that's not the reason why. He thinks that because there was a work print of the film that leaked online, and one publisher at the time said it was the most pirated film ever, and Eli Roth said that's the reason why the film didn't do so well. Which, I mean, technically he's kind of right on it, but I think it was just bad placement for this particular movie. You can't expect a movie like this to open up in the middle of the summertime when you have all the kids out of school and you expect them to go see this movie and hope for it to be a big success in general. And it just didn't work out because the film barely made its budget back. It was not a big hit compared to the first movie. I mean, the first film made over $100 million, and this thing barely crossed $35 million worldwide. Yeah, I just don't think the appeal was there. Plus, the movie overall was just dealing with so much controversy behind the scenes. It felt like they were trying to be gross for the sake of just being gross. Like, I'm looking at this poster right now, and I'll show you that in the thumbnail here, because you're not going to be able to get a good grasp of it here. Or I'll just show a picture right here. Like, it's a picture where it's supposed to be like a close-up picture of boar meat, I think it says, but it was only approved by the MPAA when, the marketing executive for Lionsgate showed the butcher shop receipts from the meat. And so but they also had to take it out of theaters because people were getting complaints from theater patrons about it. And, like, it just felt like they were making controversies for the sake of controversies because, yeah, it's a cool-looking poster, but at the same time, it's just like, just why? Like, why that? Like, it's not even that. Is like, what am I supposed to even take from that if I didn't even see the original Hostel movie? Plus, it also doesn't help that I think they were also really pushing this to be the next big success because they put the first 5 minutes out in theaters in front of Bug and thinking that this was going to be like one of the big hits of the summertime. And it just, everything was going against this movie right from the get-go. Just the fact that it was just way too more violent than the last movie was, just nothing about the movie made people really want to go see the film in general. And it's just like, yeah, this is something that I think would have done a whole lot better during the dumping month of January because there was nothing else out there for people. But the fact that they put this out in the middle of the summertime, it just hurt the film in the long run. And I don't even think the movie is that great in general. It just feels like a film that just kind of like, they had no idea how to sell the film. It's just like, we had to make a sequel because the first film was so successful. And it doesn't really add anything to the first film in general. It just feels like it's just being made because the first film was a success. And instead of following the Saw format where we put it in a place where we know it's going to be successful, we're going to put it out in the summertime because clearly people are going to go see this in the summertime. And it just didn't work in the long run. Even if the film wasn't pirated, this thing was not going to make a whole lot of money at all. So that's my personal thinking on it, per se. But that's Hostel Part 2. Let's go in and wrap this week up with the last one that we have here, and that is Marion Cotillard starring in La Vie en Rose. So this is, of course, the biographical music film about the life of French singer Edith Piaf. You just heard one of her songs in there. That's, of course, the signature song for her. But everyone remembers this movie specifically for Marion Cotillard, who broke out big time in this movie. She had been in a couple movies before this, specifically A Good Year, which was not the big hit that it should have been. But this was the film where she ended up winning an Academy Award, becoming the first actress to ever win the first French actress to ever win an Academy Award for Best Actress. She also won the BAFTA, the Golden Globe Award, the Caesar Award. Like, she swept a lot of the Academy Award, the major awards for this performance. And it's kind of hard, it's really not hard to see why, because she really does play the role very well. This is actually one of the better biographical music biographies you'll ever see. It doesn't go down the same format we've seen done before, and even when it does, it doesn't feel like they're just doing it because they know they're making something safe and marketable. This film is not afraid to go to be more dark than it needs to be. It's a film that knows that it doesn't need to be a mainstream movie per se. It can, because it's an independently produced film, they can go deeper than they need to, and they've got great performances all across the board to really save the film in general here. It is a really good movie, highlighted by the performance of Marion Cotillard. She is really good in this performance. The songs in this movie are very well done. It's a very engaging film, visually pleasing to look at. it's a very enjoyable film. It's a really entertaining movie. Definitely one of the better biopic movies that I could honestly tell you, because it's not a straightforward mainstream biopic film that could have easily been destroyed, that could have easily just been made for a quick buck. It's a very small film that knows what it needs to get across to really entertain people, and it just works really well. It's a really good movie, really entertaining. You're going to love it, especially for Marion Cotillard's performance in here. Really good movie. I highly recommend it. La Vie en Rose.
As you may know, there have been unusual occurrences all over the world.
These were taken by one of our spy satellites 3 days ago.
We need a way to locate and intercept that object.
What is it?
We were hoping you could tell us.
It's here.
That's bad.
That's really bad.
We have to destroy this thing.
Your encounter with a surfer has affected your molecules. It could cause you to temporarily switch powers.
You like to volunteer?
No, hey! Oh my God! Come on!
You can't handle this alone.
Everywhere this thing goes, 8 days later, the planet dies. All that you know is at an end.
This is, of course, the sequel to the original Fantastic Four from Tim Story and starring these actors from 2005, which was at best. But this film, it's complicated. Everything seems to be going great for the Fantastic Four. Reed and Sue are finally getting married, Johnny and the Thing are still enjoying life, and things couldn't seem better. However, when the mysterious Silver Surfer arrives, voiced by Lawrence Fishburne, even though the motion capture work's done by Doug Jones. In fact, you don't even hear Lawrence Fishburne in that trailer because they hadn't cast him yet, but crashes things and causes mayhem all over the world. They learn that they will have to deal with an old foe, Dr. Doom, once again played by Julian McMahon, and the powerful planet-eating Galactus. Which, oh boy, wait until you hear what they did to Galactus if you haven't seen this movie. But this film is a slight improvement over the last movie, but it's still not a good movie by any means. It suffers from a lot of the same problems I had with the first movie. It's way too cartoonish for its own good. Like, I know it's a comic book movie, but you can't keep doing this to... You have to advance the storyline. You have to go a little bit darker. Not Spider-Man 3 darker, but a little bit more epic than what you did with this movie. And it's trying way too hard to be funny when a movie like this should have more action to it. I really don't believe the director was right for this. Tim Story, I don't think he had any idea of what the Fantastic Four was before he took this on, because of how these characters are so unlike who they are in the comics. I say this because anyone who reads the comics clearly knows that Galactus is not a fucking cloud that consumes planets. And that's the worst thing about this movie. You have the Fantastic Four's biggest villain besides Dr. Doom in your movie, and you made him a cloud. You made him a cloud. And the director of this has gone on to say that Galactus is a cloud so that the future Silver Surfer spin-off film, like, already planning ahead because you think this is going to be even bigger success than the last film, which it really was not. Even if it wasn't by that much. The future Silver Surfer spin-off film would have a chance to be unique and introduce the character as he normally appears, and that Weta Digital convinced Fox to add physical hints of the comic book's incarnation, such as a shadow and the fiery mask with a cloud resembling Galactus' signature helmet. So not only are we not going to make the Galactus the way the comic books portray him, but the visual effects company, not the director, not the writer, had to convince Fox to add hints of comic book incarnations into the cloud. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, Jesus, that right there obviously proves that nobody at Marvel or Fox cared about making a good Fantastic Four movie when you can't even get the villains right. They've had 2 chances to fix this, and they failed miserably because the 2015 film was a complete disaster. You're starting to see why Tom Roffin's no longer at Fox and is now screwing up things over at Sony, but I guess some of the positives of the film are the action sequences are a vast improvement over the film, especially the final climax, which, unlike the first movie's climax that ends in 5 minutes, this one has a lot more action to it. You actually become invested into it. Silver Surfer's pretty cool. The effects on him are pretty good. Doug Jones doing the motion capture work's nicely done. Lawrence Fishburne is nicely done too. You get what the Silver Surfer looks and sounds like, and that was one of the strongest parts of the movie. I thought the comedy between Johnny and the Thing was actually pretty good. That's the one thing that kept these films from being downright horrible. Chris Evans and Michael Chiklis and their chemistry just working off each other. This one's a superior movie to the first film, but not by that much. It still suffers from trying way too hard on the comedy circuit, and you can clearly tell that this was made by people who had no interest in making this movie and just wanted to make money. And I guess if I had to choose the best Fantastic Four movie, this is probably it because, let's be honest, every other one they've done since then has not been great, but there's still one more chance for that to happen this summer. Matt Shankman, it's all on you. Disney and Marvel, it's all on you to fix this. But until then, we'll just have to deal with what we have here and move on to the next movie, which is Emma Roberts as Nancy Drew.
In the town of River Heights, there's no mystery that Nancy Drew can't solve.
Nancy's my best man. I mean, she would be if she were on the force.
Now, this small-town girl...
I had this dream where you went off to California and met that guy on Smallville.
Don't worry about that guy from Smallville. He's not my type.
You have a type?
Comedy. I don't know. This is, of course, based off of the book series of the same name, where you have Nancy Drew, played by Emma Roberts. She moves to L.A. with her father, played by Tate Donovan, on an extended business trip and stumbles across evidence of an unsolved murder involving the death of a murdered movie star, prompting Nancy to solve the cold case. This movie clearly wasn't made for me, even back then when I was 18 and this came out, and this clearly was not made for me by any means necessary, but, I mean, I guess it's not that bad. I mean, it is what it is. You go into it, if you don't know what you're going into, you're going to be disappointed by it. This is clearly a film that's made specifically for kids. There's nothing really offensive about it. It's just something that wasn't my thing even back in the day when it came out. But, like I said, Emma Roberts, she's fine in here. That's Max Thoreau from The Pacifier, who is passable too. Tate Donovan's okay. Rachel Lee Cook's okay. This is probably the most bland, okay movie I have ever seen in my life. It's a movie where it's just like, I don't get it, but for its target audience, it's harmless. There's nothing really that bad about it or offensive about it. It's just kind of there, and it's just kind of like, yeah, it is what it is. So, I got nothing else for you. This is a pretty bland movie, but for its target audience, it's fine, but I don't know. Like, to me, it just didn't fly with me, but... That's Nancy Drew for you, so let's go ahead and move on to our last movie that we have here, and that is D.O.A. Dead or Alive.
From international spies to elite assassins, the world's greatest warriors, welcome to D.O.A., have been brought together.
Fights can happen any place, against anyone,
for the ultimate competition. Bring it on! It's showtime.
Not now. I'm in my underwear.
Seems like promise us special friends. We'll settle up tomorrow, sweetie.
Because 2 women are in the same bed. You horny yet, teenage boys that are going to not see this movie? Yeah, this film came and went. It didn't leave much of a lasting impact in particular and was completely pushed off to the side. The only reason I brought it up was because it was within the top 15 of the box office, and even then, it was still a massive flop. It brought in only $7 million off of a $30 million budget. So that should tell you everything you need to know about this. But this is based off of the video game franchise Dead or Alive, where fighters are invited to Dead or Alive, an invitational martial arts contest where the 4 female fighters begin as rivals but work together to uncover the secret of the organizer of the tournament, which is what he's trying to hide. And it features an ensemble cast, if you will, but I don't know. Devin Aoki from Sin City, Holly Valance, which I don't even remember what she's in, but it's got Jamie Presley in it, and she's probably the most notable name in the movie. Joy Turner from My Name is Earl. Who else is in here? Sarah Carter, Matthew Marsden, Eric Roberts, Kevin Nash. I mean, if Eric Roberts and Kevin Nash are considered a part of an ensemble cast here, this is not a good sign going forward for the movie's success. And yeah, this film is pretty. It's just as bad as your typical bad video game movie was. I mean, this is still back when nobody was giving video game movies and as a second effort. They were just there because of name recognition. And even then, the people that were making the movies clearly had no intentions on making a good movie. And what a shocker. It's done by the same people who did the Resident Evil movies, who clearly have no indication of how to make the Resident Evil movie successful, even though they've made countless movies that just made money because people saw it because of the name recognition. And people were that stupid that they didn't want to go see this. People weren't that stupid not to go see this movie in particular. And that just tells you that nobody cared about this movie. And quite frankly, it's not hard to see why. This is a bland, boring movie that has nothing of value to it whatsoever. It's not even close to what the video game franchise is even about. And it just feels like it's there to sucker in teenage boys because, hey, let's have all these beautiful women together and let's put them in a bed because maybe it'll be some kind of lesbian fantasy that they have because they're, horny teenage boys. But yeah, this movie sucks. This movie is nothing like that. It's a film that's just bland, forgettable, made it so they can make a quick buck on the video game franchise, and yeah, the results speak for themselves pretty much. So not much more to say about that one. But D.O.A. Dead or Alive, let's just say it's dead and it's never coming back.
Evan Baxter was just an ordinary man until God showed up with an extraordinary request.
Flood's coming, and I want you to build an ark.
Yeah. From the director of Bruce Almighty.
What's up?
Hey, little help?
Thank you. Comes the next epic chapter.
Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Evan Almighty, rated PG, in theaters June 22nd.
Because when I think of the sequel to Bruce Almighty, you know who the first person I want to be the star of it is? The guy who was the asshole in the first movie. Yeah, that's part of the problems with this movie, and that's just part of the many problems with this movie. Okay, so the bottom line here is that Bruce Almighty, like I said, was one of the biggest comedy hits of all time. So naturally, they wanted to make a sequel. But this was back when Jim Carrey didn't want to do sequels. He had the bad time when he made Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, and he passed up on Dumb and Dumber 2 for the longest time before he eventually did it. And then he passed on The Mask 2, and now he's more restrained to doing more sequels. He did Dumb and Dumber 2, and he's done the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. So instead of that, let's get Steve Carell, who was a rising star at the time. The Office was a big hit on television, just won the Emmy for Outstanding Comedy Series, and Steve Carell's name was getting more and more recognized, and he was being seen as a big top comedy star. And on paper, it doesn't seem like a bad idea to put the focus on him, but boy, the way they took this was just, needless to say, this was not the best move to go with it. But as you can tell from the trailer, this is more of a modern-day retelling of Noah's Ark, where you have Evan, who went from being a news reporter to a congressman, and now he's reenacted. He reluctantly reenacts it because God, once again played by Morgan Freeman, commands him to do so. At the same time, Evan pursues a new career in the government, and the whole thing is about, protecting the environment and that type of stuff. And, there's also this idea that, things are very shaky, of course, in Congress and all that. He's got a congressman played by John Goodman who's all over him. A lot of stars in this movie, too. Not just Steve Carell, Morgan Freeman, and John Goodman, but Lauren Graham's in the movie. Jonah Hill, Wanda Sykes, Ed Helms, Jon Stewart has a cameo in here, too. And yeah, this movie just feels like a film that was just meant to have all these big stars in here. But on top of that, there's much bigger special effects. There's a whole big sequence in the climax in the movie where, the floodgates literally open and it creates a massive flood. But unlike the real Noah's Ark, which took, what was it? What was it? Not like 40 days and 40 nights, I think it was. I think. Yeah, 40 days and 40 nights. But here, it only takes about a couple minutes, which, don't get me wrong, that sequence is pretty cool to see. But they built this whole thing up throughout the entire movie like this is the end of the world. Like this is supposed to be the end of everything as we know it. And, in the old story of Noah's Ark, 40 days and 40 nights. But in this movie, literally takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes and then boom. That's it. I'm sorry, what? You spent all this whole movie just to flood a neighborhood and that's it? That's all you're gonna do here? None of this makes any sense whatsoever. That's a lot of the problems with the movie. And plus they had to deal with all the animals. And this comedy, the budget blossomed to $175 million when this was all said and done. And this film couldn't even finish that. Couldn't even make that back at the box office. That should tell you everything you need to know. But on top of that, there was a lot of people who were offended by this movie. In fact, the Muslims actually was saying it's offensive to Islam. And, they actually had the film banned from theaters for the longest time until it was eventually released in Malaysia a couple months later. But then church groups got involved in it too. And it's just like, would you expect any of this from Bruce Almighty? But then again, this has the PG rating to it because the families can come and go see it because, families went like crazy to go see the original Bruce Almighty, which was PG-13. By the way, second movie released in the summer of 2007 with a PG-13 first film and a PG sequel. I forgot to mention Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer was that, but yeah. The bottom line here is that this is the prime example of a movie that just... they focused more on the special effects. They really had no idea what they were supposed to do. They focused on the fact they had the big cast. They didn't worry about a script in general. But they knew that they got these stars in here. Clearly, they were going to make their money back. And, yeah, no. No, they did not. They did not do any of that whatsoever. And, yeah, the film suffers big time because, yeah, it's an abomination. It's a film that is just not fun. It's just not enjoyable by any means necessary. The whole big purpose of the film is done so quickly that it feels rather unnecessary. What was the whole point if this is only going to take, a couple minutes off of your time? You just destroyed an entire neighborhood for what purposes whatsoever? The whole thing makes absolutely no sense whatsoever why he's doing this. It's just this isn't like the wildfires that are going on right now in LA as of the time I'm recording this. This isn't like a hurricane. This isn't like an earthquake or a tornado. No. The whole thing is because of a fluky dam that the person behind, the person behind the person behind the dams that you find out, they were not well put together. And it's just like if you were supposed to have an environmental message or something like that to it, okay, maybe there'd be a point to it, but there's nothing about this movie that makes it worth it when it's all said and done. And it just feels like you just wasted everyone's time with this movie because you were so focused on the you were so focused on the budget and getting these big stars involved in here, and you didn't worry about a script whatsoever. This movie killed Tom Shadyak's career as a director. He didn't direct any big comedies after this again, and he kind of relegated back to I think the last thing he directed was, of all things, a documentary, I think. He did direct smaller movies. The next one he directed was a documentary about what had happened after he was in a bicycle accident that happened around the time that this movie was getting made. But then he did a movie recently, Brian Banks, which I've never seen before, but it's more of a drama. But bottom line, this killed his career as a big-time director. This is a guy that directed some of the biggest comedy hits of all time. And after this, he just couldn't get any work after this. But yeah, it's just not a good... Bottom line is that it's just not a good movie. Despite all the big stars involved in here, despite the ideas that they had in here, it's all just a complete waste of time, and it just feels like you just completely wasted everyone's time making this movie. It just feels utterly pointless. It's ridiculous. It's bad. It's just not an entertaining movie per se, and it really just dampens the flow of the enjoyment of what this movie should really be. And it's just what are we even doing here? What was the whole point of doing this? Honestly. yeah, bottom line, the movie sucks. It's a bad movie. It's not entertaining. It's just not a good film at all. Avoid it like the plague. Evan Almighty. Just watch the original Bruce Almighty and just be done with it already. So, yeah, not much more to say about that one. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one we have here. John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson, Stephen King's 1408.
1408, please.
He came to expose a myth. It's an evil myth. But he's just opened the door to a world he may never escape. Critics are calling 1408 startling and intense.
Did you call the cops?
They're in 1408. The room's empty.
A mind-twisting nail-biter.
Don't you love me anymore?
A terrifying masterpiece.
I warned you about 1408.
1408, rated PG-13.
Based off of Stephen King's more recent story that actually was turned into a movie. This was directed by Michael Hafstrom and is about John Cusack, who plays an author who investigates allegedly haunted locales, and he receives an ominous warning not to enter the titular room of 1408 in a fictional New York City hotel, the Dolphin. Although skeptical of the paranormal, he is soon trapped in the room where he experiences bizarre and frightful events, and this is overall a really good movie. This is a movie that actually did kind of work, and is really one of the better Stephen King adaptations you'll ever see. I mean, the movie does a good job of being very terrifying at times. The suspenseful factor is there. You know, the psychological situations of John Cusack's character are very good in here. Like, you really do feel like that this guy is losing his mind completely, and it just is just so well put together. It is such a very intense film. Samuel L. Jackson is very intense in this movie. Like, he's very threatening in here. You've got Tony Shalhoub and Mary McCormick in here as well. Everybody plays their part here very well. The scares are legitimately good. Like, there's a couple of jump scares where it got me. It's just like, okay, like, you did the one thing that you should do, make legitimately good jump scares, and this works so well to a T. It's really one of Stephen King's best adaptations of his books ever. It's a really good film. It's a really engaging film. The acting is great. The suspense is there. The tension is there. I can't recommend this one enough. It's a really good movie. 1408. Highly recommended. Definitely check it out. So, 1408, let's go ahead and move on to the next film we have here, and that's Angelina Jolie starring in A Mighty Heart.
He didn't come home last night.
Her husband went missing.
They claim he's CIA.
That's crazy.
No.
What is everybody doing?
We fight kidnappers with kidnappers. Her true story of courage
The kidnapper's point is to terrorize people. I am a terrorist.
will inspire you.
When it is over, there is nothing that I won't have the courage to face.
Angelina Jolie,
You can make the difference of helping Danny or nobody finds him. I need the name.
A Mighty Heart. Rated R. Starts Friday everywhere.
Great movie, then unfortunately bombed. We get a lot of these, and we talked about a lot of these. This is based off the story of Marion Pearl, and in the story you have Angelina Jolie playing Marion Pearl in this, where her husband is kidnapped by Karachi by supporters of Omar Sikh. The movie also covers efforts by Pakistan Special Forces, Department of Justice, and U.S. Department of State Diplomatic Secret Services to track the kidnappers and bring them to justice. And she claims responsibility for kidnapping and beheading Pearl in 2002. He was captured and convicted, but is appealing the ruling, as of the film says in here. At least that's what it's saying on here. I'm guessing this is from when 2007 happened. I don't know if they actually did it or not, but this is a really good movie, directed by Michael Winterbottom, who has made a couple of good movies overall. One of the ones that I always remember is, which one? Okay, maybe he didn't do Wonderland. I'm thinking he did Wonderland, the 2003 Val Kilmer movie, but have I talked about a movie here that I didn't? Have I talked about a movie of his that I've liked before? I don't think I did. Okay, I'm thinking of something else then. But bottom line, with all that said, this is a really good movie, and Angelina Jolie, I think, really does shine in the movie. Dan Futterman plays her husband in this, who gets killed. When you see him on screen, he's actually pretty good. Archie Panjabi from The Good Wife, one of her first big breakout roles. I thought she was pretty good in here. Will Patton is also in here too. Irfa Khan. A lot of good things about the movie overall. There's a lot of good performances all across the board here. It's definitely a very underrated Angelina Jolie film. One that didn't get the proper respect. Like I said, it was a box office failure when it came out, but it isn't a bad movie by any means necessary. It's a really good movie that's not afraid to take the dark limits that it needs to do to tell the story the right way, and it doesn't feel like it's being made by somebody who just wants to make a safe and marketable movie. They tell you the cold hard truth, and They don't sugarcoat it whatsoever, and I thought it worked very well for what they were trying to accomplish here. It's a good movie, one I highly recommend checking out, A Mighty Heart. So with that said, let's move on to the last one we have here, and that's Michael Moore's latest film, Sicko.
We got issue in America. Too many good docs are getting out of business. Too many OBGYNs aren't able to practice their love with women all across this country.
When Michael Moore decided to make a movie on the healthcare industry, top-level executives were on the defensive. What were they hiding?
That's not on, right?
No. Okay.
The intent is to maximize profits.
You denied more people health care, you got a bonus?
When you don't spend money on somebody, it's a savings to the company.
I want America to have the finest health care in the world.
4 health care lobbyists for every member of Congress.
Here's what it costs to buy these men, and this woman, this guy, and this guy.
And the United States slipped to 37 in health care around the world, just slightly ahead of Slovenia.
Clearly irrelevant today. I mean, wow, you couldn't make this movie nowadays, and who we can, of course you could. This is the latest documentary, of course, from Michael Moore, investigating healthcare in the United States, focusing on the country's health insurance and the pharmaceutical industry. Moore compares the for-profit non-universal U.S. system with the non-profit universal healthcare systems of Canada, the United Kingdom, France, and Cuba. And they were expecting this to be a film that was supposed to be as successful as Fahrenheit 9/11, as that was the last film Michael Moore had directed, and made kind of more in line with what Bowling for Columbine did. Fahrenheit 9/11 was kind of a lightning in a bottle moment where you're never going to get that $100 million hit once again with Fahrenheit 9/11. With this, they were probably happy with the results of this, and it is what it is. I mean, if you've seen Michael Moore's work before, you know exactly what type of a film you're getting into here, and it is an overall and a good film overall. Not quite as good as something like Fahrenheit 9/11 or Bowling for Columbine, but it is a very thought-provoking film in general. It's a very interesting film in general that really, and it's a film that is still very topical even by today's standards. I mean, we still have the whole problems with, healthcare. We have a president that's probably going to get rid of the current universal healthcare system that we do somewhat have, not really, but it's just a movie where it's just kind of like, it is what it is. You go into it expecting what you expect from it, and yeah. Overall, it's fine for what it is. It's a good movie. Not a great film overall, but it's a good film overall. Like, if you like Michael Moore stuff, you're gonna find a lot to admire about this. I thought this was okay. Definitely not one of his stronger films overall. So that's Sicko.
Tonight, before the dessert course, we present for your pleasure the traditional cheese trolley. To start, we have an excellent clochette, creamy, very nice, very light. Next, a brebis, hearty, with a surprising bite, I think you'll find. And finally, the pièce de résistance, a very special, very well.
This is me. I think it's apparent that I need to rethink my life a little bit. I can't help myself. I like good food, okay? And good food is hard for a rat to find.
It wouldn't be so hard to find if you weren't so picky.
I don't want to eat garbage, Dad. What is that?
I don't really know.
You don't know, and you're eating it.
You know, if you can sort of muscle your way past the gag reflex, all kinds of food possibilities open up.
This is what I'm talking about. I don't think any of this would have come up, but we happen to live in Paris, France. And it's so easy to find good food in Paris. It's just dangerous.
Gotta rethink your life.
He's right, Let it go, Dad!
This one's an interesting one for me personally. The title, of course, refers to the French dish ratatouille and also references the species of the main character, a rat. And set mostly in Paris, you follow a young rat played by Patton Oswalt who dreams of becoming a chef at Auguste Gusteau's restaurant. The chef's being played by Brad Garrett, and also trying to achieve his goal of forming an unlikely alliance with the restaurant's garbage boy, Alfredo Linguini, played by Lou Romano. And of course, you have a storyline going on within the story where he realizes that he's actually the father of Gusteau, and it just goes through various different phases of the storyline. He's got to deal with they got to deal with a food critic that wants to shut the place down, and I'll be honest with you. When I first saw this movie, I didn't like it. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I really didn't think it was that good of a movie overall. It's a movie that I needed time to really, really take in. I needed a few years to really appreciate how good it really was. Because, like I said, it didn't wow me at first, but then it took a couple of viewings, like about maybe, I want to say 4 or 5 different viewings after I saw it for the first time. That's when I finally started to realize why people were talking about this as, such the great movie that it was. I mean, it is a movie that really, you have to let it take its time with you to really appreciate what makes it so special. And I don't know why. I think it was mostly because the first time I saw it, I didn't really get invested by it. I was kind of bored by it at first. It was more there was a lot more dialogue than there was actual, action and storyline going on here. Not that a movie like this that needs to have a whole lot of action going on in it, but, considering what Brad Bird had done beforehand with The Iron Giant and The Incredibles, this is a much more laid-back movie. And it took me a while to really realize why that was working for this film going forward. At first, I was just kind of like, yeah, this isn't really working for me. But then, like I said, about 4 or 5 times after I saw the film for the first time, that's when I finally started to realize why this worked and why, around the time I had become more convinced of how, not every movie needs to have a whole lot of action. You can actually have a lot more dialogue in a movie than anything going on in terms of like big adventure and all that stuff. And yeah, there is adventure in here. There is a little bit of action here and there, but a lot of it comes in the dialogue. A lot of it comes in the relationships between the characters. Like, you have the relationship between the rat and the garbage boy. You have him in the relationship with this woman played by Janine Garofalo. You have this kind of asshole antagonist, chef who wants to take over the restaurant. You have Remy trying to work with his family in general, who doesn't want him to be this fancy food guy, just be happy with what he has to have to work with here. They got to deal with the food critic, who also has a big storyline towards the end of the movie. Like, it really did take me time to really appreciate the true majesty of what made this movie so special, and it really works because it is unlike the other movies that Brad Bird had done before. It is more laid back. It is more it's more straightforward than it's letting on. Like, it's a movie that lets the storyline just play out and, lets the dialogue really be the reason why the movie holds up and has the big payoff at the end. Because, yeah, the movie overall works incredibly well on so many levels because of how good the dialogue really is. When the film really delivers the best stuff is in the second half, when they have to deal with the food critic and, the way the food critic actually has a change of heart because of the food that they serve him. And there is a lot of nice dialogue in the movie. There's a lot of stuff that they do in here that, yeah, it works to the film's advantage overall. And it made me realize after those few times I saw it, what really made this movie so special was the fact that, yeah, it was something radically different from this director, from what Pixar had been doing before. It's not the same storyline they had done before so many times before in the past. And it's a really good movie. It's a very entertaining film. It's another masterpiece by Brad Bird that took its time for me to really get my full interest in. And when it finally hit me on why this movie works so well, I fell in love with it every time I see it. Like, it's a movie that I've understood now to be as good as everyone had said beforehand. It just took me a long time to really appreciate what the movie was trying to do at this point, and it just works really well. It's an incredible film, very well done, very nicely animated, very emotional, nice storyline, nice voice work. It's a really good movie. It's one I can't recommend enough. Ratatouille, it's a great film. You might, if you see it for the first time, it may not hit you at first, but once you get a couple of viewings into it, you'll really appreciate the true nature of why this movie is so special. At least that's what happened with me, but who knows what might happen with you people out there. But with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to the other big new release of the summer, and that of this weekend in particular, and that was Live Free or Die Hard.
Why are you so calm? Have you done that kind of stuff before?
Oh, he's done that kind of stuff before, Justin Long. He's done it many, many times before then, and he'll do it at least one more time after this movie. But Live Free or Die Hard. This is the fourth installment of the Die Hard series that, let's be honest, a lot of people did not expect we were ever going to get. I mean, Die Hard with a Vengeance really was kind of the final. It was a good end to a pretty strong trilogy. It wrapped up the storyline from what they were setting up in Die Hard with a Vengeance. It's a nice, bookend to how the first movie got started. It just worked on so many levels, and you didn't really need another film to really continue the storyline. You could have just stopped it with there. There had actually been attempts to make another Die Hard film. I think Tears of the Sun was actually supposed to be a Die Hard movie, but they passed it. They just made that its own film, and probably would have been better if that was a Die Hard movie, because the Tears of the Sun we got was not a good film. But this is Live Free or Die Hard. This is based off of a 1997 article called A Farewell to Arms. But in the film, you have John McClane, once again played by Bruce Willis, who's attempting to stop a cyber terrorist, Thomas Gabriel, played by Timothy Olyphant, who hacks into government and commercial computers across the United States with the goal of starting a fire-sale cyber attack that would disable key elements of the nation's infrastructure. You also have Justin Long as Bruce Willis's partner in this adventure. You have Mary Elizabeth Winstead playing his daughter, who's now all grown up. Cliff Curtis is in here. Maggie Q. Kevin Smith also has a role in here as well. What's notable about this movie is two things. One, the director is Len Wiseman, who did the Underworld movies, which I've said before are not great films in general, but most notably, this is the only PG-13 rated Die Hard movie. This was back when Tom Rothman was running Fox, and for some reason he thought, we're going to make a new Die Hard movie, but you know who needs to come see this? The families. Let's make this a PG-13 rated movie. And it's just the same man that said that he hates the X-Men, but he'll do everything with Wolverine because he loves that character so much. And let's also do a PG-13 Alien vs. Predator movie, because that'll work, right? Oh, that didn't work? Well, here, we'll give you an R-rated one, too. Oh, that didn't work either. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself with that one, because that's coming later in the year. But to the film's credit, though, this was actually a really good movie. Despite the PG-13 rating, I actually really did like Live Free or Die Hard a lot. I thought it was still just as fun as the other movies are. It's not, it doesn't have, the same things that made the R-rated movie so great. He only gets to say his famous line, "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker," one time. But the way they do it in this movie actually does work in the end. I mean, it works fine for what it is, and especially when you consider that A Good Day to Die Hard came after this, and that went back to the R rating, and then you have a terrible director who, is trying so hard to take Die Hard back to its original R-rated roots, and then you get a bad movie like that. Yeah, I think we can all handle this movie in general. Yeah, the film overall is good. Is it a great film? No, it's not. It's kind of like the Toy Story 4 and the Kung Fu Panda 4 of the Die Hard series. It's a sequel that does not need to exist, but for a fourth film in a series that worked on its own as a trilogy, it works on its own merits. I like Bruce Willis is still having a ton of fun in this. Justin Long has a couple good seasons here. Mary Elizabeth Winstead's very good here. Timothy Olyphant is a good villain. Kevin Smith has a ton of fun in the little role he has in here. The action sequences are still a ton of fun to watch. They're ridiculous, they're over the top, but they're still very fun all across the board. I like it a lot. I still think it's a very enjoyable film. It's a really good film that I think worked this one time without going to the limits that the first three films had already set up. And the fact that they tried to go back to that with the next movie didn't work out in its favor. Probably was a sign that now would have been that would have been a good time to end the series at that level. It would have been better if you ended it here, but of course this movie became the big success that it was. It actually did become the highest grossing installment in the Die Hard series, which is why they made the next movie after this, but this is the last real good Die Hard movie that came from this, and yeah, it's a good movie overall. It's not as good as the trilogy, but I'll still take it. It's a really fun film overall. I had a good time with it. I still enjoy it. Live Free or Die Hard. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last film that we have here, and that is the ensemble Evening.
The author of the hours.
Close your eyes and think of a time when you were happy.
Experience this summer's must-see movie, starring the greatest actresses of our time. It's about the choices we make and the love that fills our lives.
We are mysterious creatures, aren't we?
Evening, rated PG-13, now playing.
Yes, starring the greatest actresses of our time. Oscars, please. I mean, literally, this movie existed so all these people could be in this film, and hopefully, if the studio is smart, they'll release it around Oscar time, and it will be a movie that will get several Academy Award nominations, and, no, it did not. This is actually based off of a book written by Susan Minot, who actually wrote the script for this, based off of her 1998 novel of the same name, where you have the love which binds mother and daughter, seen through the prism of one mother's life as it crests with optimism, navigating a turning point and ebbs it to the close. Overcome by the power of memories, Anne Lord, played by Vanessa Redgrave, reveals a long-held secret to her concerned daughters. Constance Haverford, played by Natasha Richardson, a content wife and mother, and Nina Morris, played by Toni Collette, a restless single woman. Both are bedside when Anne calls out for the man that she loved more than any other. But who is this Harris, wonder her daughters, and what is he to our mother? While Constance and Nina try to take stock of Anne's life and their own lives, their mother is tended by a night nurse played by Dame Eileen Atkins, as she journeys into her mind back to her summer weekend about 50 years before, where she met Anne Grant, played by Claire Danes, a young woman who had come from New York City to become the maid of honor at a high society Newport wedding of her dearest friend from college, Lila Winterbourne, played by Mamie Gummer. The bride-to-be is jittery and turns out to her maid of honor rather than her own mother for support. Anne stays close to her friend, yet is even closer to Lila's irresponsible brother, played by Hugh Dancy. Unexpected feelings surge forward once man meets wedding guest Harris Arden, played by Patrick Wilson, a lifelong friend and intimate of the Winterbourne family. Anne's love for Harris will change her life and those of her daughters forever. And it changes my life because, good Lord, that is a lot to take in with this movie. And really, I think the biggest problem with the movie in particular just comes from the fact that they had the big names in here. They had nothing else really to go with it. This is a film that is just so filled with so much boring stuff going on here. It's a film that has so many big stars attached to it that they felt like as soon as they could put those names in there, that's going to sell the movie no matter what. They could just do whatever they want to do and just it'll work from there. And it just doesn't do that. It's a boring film that wastes a lot of really good talent on here, on stories that just... There's so many different stories going on in here, and none of them really connect as well as they wanted to. It's a film that I think is only relevant because of all the big names they have in here, and it just feels like there's just nothing else there besides those big names, and just that was it. That's how they sold the film. And they do nothing to kind of move the story along at a smooth enough pace. It's just all over the place. Nothing really happens in terms of moving the story along that makes it worth it in the end. It's a boring film. It's a lazy film that wastes a lot of good talent. A better film could have been made with all these people involved in it. Had the script been better, but as it is, no, not so much. Evening is not a good film per se. Avoid it like the plague.